Half awake, drifting in that hazy space between sleep and consciousness, I heard the front door open, followed by soft footsteps approaching the bed. A familiar scent, warmth and closeness, enveloped me as he drew near. Instinctively, I sat up, reaching out, looping my arms around Daniel's neck. My lips were mere centimeters from his when he abruptly turned his head, avoiding my kiss. The subtle, almost imperceptible shift, that unconscious rejection, jolted us both. Sleep vanished instantly, replaced by a sudden, sharp awareness. Perhaps sensing the sudden awkwardness. Hanging in the air, Daniel cleared his throat, fiddled with his tie, and retreated directly into the bathroom. Soon, the sound of the shower started, a steady drizzle against the silence. Daniel had been working brutally long hours lately, often returning home bone-tired and late. The thought that he might not have even eaten yet softened the sting of his avoidance. The awkwardness dissipated slightly, replaced by concern. I reached for my phone on the nightstand, intending to order him some food, only to remember it was charging in the living room. Glancing over, I saw Daniel's phone lying carelessly on the pillow beside me. Without much thought, I picked it up. I found the app for his favorite late-night spot, the one he'd frequented recently, and ordered a bowl of their signature bone broth noodles. Just as I finished the order and was about to lock the screen, a notification popped up from a delivery app. Your help me buy errand order has been completed. Curious, I glanced at the order details. Brown sugar. A box of herbal pain relief capsules specifically for menstrual cramps. Before I could process that, another notification slid onto the screen. A WeChat message. The pain reliever really helped. Thanks, smiley face. My fingers hovered over the screen, a cold knot forming in my stomach. After a long moment, I tapped the notification, opening the chat. The most recent messages were from just half an hour ago. Daniel, you didn't look well when you left earlier. Her, a pitiful-looking emoji. Daniel, I finished the proposal draft. Her, awesome. Then I can sleep in a bit tomorrow, come into the office later. Daniel, okay. A short pause, then another message from him. Daniel, are you feeling okay? No reply from her. 5 minutes passed. Daniel, bought you a few things. Keep warm these next few days. He hadn't saved her name, no contact alias. But the profile picture, the context of the conversation, it was unmistakably her. Sophia Zhou. The first time I heard the name Sophia Zhou was about a month ago. Daniel had taken me to the movies. Midway through, I noticed his attention wandering. Glancing over, I saw him looking down at his phone, a faint smile playing on his lips, his usual tension eased, replaced by a relaxed softness around his eyes. Watching him, a flicker of unease stirred within me. After hesitating, I finally asked, "What are you looking at?" He kept his gaze lowered, his voice tinged with amusement. Sophia Zhou. The air between us suddenly felt thick, heavy. It was the first time I'd heard her name, spoken from his lips. The syllables rolled off his tongue gently, almost caressingly. It sounded unervingly beautiful. As if realizing his slip, his head snapped up, his eyes meeting mine. After a tense 2-second stare down, he handed me his phone, his expression shifting to one of earnest explanation. Sophia's new at the office. Really hardworking. I just see her as a junior colleague, someone to mentor. I stared numbly at the phone screen. The video showed a young woman, presumably Sophia, celebrating a birthday. Someone had playfully smeared cake on her face, but she didn't seem to mind, grinning broadly, her laughter infectious. She radiated an easygoing, likable energy. A colleague sent the video to the group chat. Daniel continued, his voice regaining its usual warmth. I just randomly clicked on it. He took my hand, his grip firm, his warmth tangible. Chloe, he murmured, using my name, trust me. I held his gaze for a long time. His expression was open, sincere. He didn't look like he was lying. But inexplicably, the image of his earlier, private smile kept replaying in my mind. We didn't exchange another word until the movie ended. I hadn't realized then, but the warning signs were already there. 10 minutes later, the bathroom door opened. Daniel emerged, changed into pajamas, his dark hair still damp, dripping slightly onto his shoulders. The moment our eyes met, he froze, his expression hardening slightly. Did you go through my phone? Before I could respond, a tickle in my throat erupted into a small, quiet cough. I pressed my lips together, trying to stifle it. Daniel stared at me for a moment, then asked, his voice laced with a new hesitation, "Are you catching a cold?" I nodded mutely, pulling the blanket higher. Autumn had settled in, bringing its characteristic chill. I've always had a weaker constitution, susceptible to colds and fevers, especially during seasonal changes. In our 5 years together, Daniel had always been hypervigilant around this time, checking weather forecasts, reminding me to take an umbrella, dragging me to the gym, a fortress built against potential illness. When I teased him about being overly anxious, he'd wrap his arms around me from behind, burying his face in my shoulder, murmuring, "I don't want you getting sick." Not even a sniffle. But these past few weeks, an unspoken tension had grown between us, a subtle Cold War. And these small shifts, these early signs of illness in me, seemed to have gone completely unnoticed by him. Until now. "Work has been crazy lately, I haven't been paying enough attention," Daniel said, his voice pulling me back from my thoughts. He had sat down on the edge of the bed at some point, tucking the blanket around me more securely. There was a faint trace of guilt in his eyes. "It won't happen again." His phone was still warm in my hand. I couldn't stop myself. "Is it just because of work?" "There's really nothing between Sophia and me." He opened the nightstand drawer, took out a cigarette, and lit it, the flare briefly illuminating the weariness etched on his face. I didn't speak. Instead, I navigated back to another section of his chat history, one I'd scrolled past earlier, and held the phone out to him. The timestamp was from 3 nights ago. Sophia, apparently drunk, had messaged him late at night. "Sophia, if you didn't have a girlfriend, would you like someone like me?" Daniel had replied with a single, devastating word, "Yes." Seeing the message displayed, Daniel froze again. The cigarette trembled slightly between his fingers. Silence stretched, thick and suffocating. Finally, he stubbed out the cigarette in the ashtray, looked up at me, his face devoid of expression. "I told you, she's just a colleague. I promised you nothing would happen between us. Isn't that enough?" His voice was flat, but the undercurrent of disappointment, the subtle accusation directed at me for doubting, for prying, was unmistakable. In that instant, staring at the stranger before me, a chilling realization dawned. I didn't recognize this man at all. As if on cue, adding insult to injury, Daniel's phone vibrated again in my hand. A new message notification popped up. It was Sophia. "Have you eaten yet?" Followed immediately by another. "I bet you haven't. Ordered you some bone broth noodles. From that place I took you to last time, winky face." I stared at the words, a vice tightening around my heart, crushing the air from my lungs. Daniel rarely ate noodles. He never had. Not since I'd known him well. His childhood was rough, father absent early, mother struggling to make ends. Me working far away, often leaving him alone, barely fed. He was a lonely, quiet kid back then. Other children avoided him. Only I sought him out. I remember finding him once, sitting hunched on a stool in his empty kitchen, silently eating a bowl of plain noodles, clear broth, not a single vegetable in sight. When he saw me watching, a flicker of shame crossed his face, quickly masked. He just kept eating. Seeing his thin profile, the starkness of his meal, a wave of sadness, perhaps mixed with a sense of shared loneliness, washed over me. My own mother, obsessed with having a son, resented me for being a girl, her disappointment a constant, cold presence in our home after. Complications during my birth made further pregnancies unlikely. Daniel and I, in our separate miseries, found solace in each other's company, navigating those bleak years together. Until his mother struck gold in business, became a minor news sensation, and whisked him away after junior high. We lost touch for years, reconnecting unexpectedly in university. After we got together, I noticed he never ate noodles. I understood why. He didn't want to be reminded of that painful, impoverished past. But recently, he'd started bringing home takeout containers of bone broth noodles from that specific shop near our apartment. Often, I'd even teased him, asking why this sudden craving. "No reason," he'd replied casually. "Just felt like it." I'd felt happy then, thinking he'd finally let go of those old ghosts. Now I knew. It wasn't about letting go of the past. It was about embracing something new. Because of her. I told Daniel I wanted to break up. As I zipped up my suitcase, he suddenly grabbed my wrist, his grip tight. "Chloe, are you really leaving?" First to look up, I met his eyes. Eyes I used to adore, So gentle, so focused, making me feel like the center of his universe. I remembered sophomore year, a planned trip to Dolly with my roommate fell through when she bailed last minute. I decided to go alone. Ticket bought, itinerary planned. On my second day there, I hiked up a mountain to see the sunrise. As the first rays of light pierced the misty peaks, illuminating the ethereal landscape, I saw a familiar face. Daniel. Aren't you supposed to be in Beijing for that competition? I'd asked, surprised and thrilled. He rubbed his cold hands together, unwound the scarf from his neck, and carefully wrapped it around mine. His ears and cheeks were bright red from the cold, his voice trembling slightly. Saw your post online about coming to Dolly alone for the sunrise. I wasn't comfortable with that. Finished the competition early, came straight here. He met my gaze, his own intense. I wanted to watch it with you. The rising sun painted his eyes gold, but the warmth spread through my heart. After Dolly, the dynamic between us shifted, deepened. Soon after, we were officially together. But that focus, that warmth, was gone now. His eyes held only irritation, impatience. It was still me, my heart, and I still held only him, but the man looking back wasn't the same. Maybe he didn't even realize how much he'd changed. I'll finish packing and move out tomorrow morning. Pulling my gaze away, I gently extricated my hand from his grasp. I'll sleep in the guest room tonight. It was past midnight when I finally finished packing. Exhausted, I collapsed onto the guest room bed. Opening my phone, I saw a new friend request notification. From Sophia Zhou. Hesitantly, I accepted. She didn't message immediately. Driven by a morbid curiosity, I clicked on her profile, opening her feed. The latest post was from just moments ago. 2 photos. The first, a selfie of Sophia, smiling brightly. Behind her, on a table, sat a steaming bowl of bone broth noodles. The second, another bowl of bone broth noodles. But the background was instantly recognizable. The distinct checkered pattern of the dining table in the apartment I shared with Daniel. The small vase holding a single, perfect red rose. The vase Daniel and I had picked out together at the supermarket. Sophia's caption read, LOL, having virtual noodles with someone. This post visible only to someone special. Below it, a single like. From Daniel. Sleep that night was fragmented, restless. Dreams flickered. Childhood me, dabbing antiseptic on a bruise on young Daniel's lip, my own tears falling before his. Teenage me on the mountain in Dolly, the wind biting, Daniel's cool hand enveloping mine, tucking both into the warmth of his pocket. Then, the scene shifted. Daniel, arm wrapped possessively around Sophia, walking past me, their faces cold, indifferent, not even a glance in my direction. The dreams felt so real that when I woke the next morning and went downstairs to find Sophia actually sitting on the sofa, I froze, momentarily disoriented. I'd only seen her in videos on Daniel's phone before. This was our first face-to-face meeting. Honestly, she was quite pretty. Fair skin, a long, elegant neck. She sat there, head tilted slightly back. There was a small cut on her forehead, dotted with blood. Daniel was kneeling beside her, carefully cleaning the wound. One hand gently cupped her chin, the other dabbed antiseptic with a cotton swab. His touch was incredibly careful. Sophia let out a small hiss of pain. Daniel's movements visibly slowed, became even more cautious. Sunlight streamed through the blinds, catching the worry and concern etched clearly in his eyes. It also illuminated the scene perfectly for me, standing frozen halfway down the stairs. My grip on the suitcase handle slackened involuntarily. It bumped against the steps with a soft thud. Hearing the noise, Daniel looked up, frowning at me, but said nothing. It was Sophia who spoke first, introducing herself breezily, then explaining that Daniel had an important client meeting that morning, and she was just dropping off some files. The elevator in your building is out, she added with a rueful smile. I tripped on the stairs coming up. So sorry to trouble you both. I didn't respond. Gripping my suitcase handle tightly again, I walked past them towards the front door. Just as I reached for the doorknob, Daniel's hand clamped down on mine. He loomed over me, his voice tight with exasperation. Haven't you made enough of a scene? His grip was bruising. I struggled, pulling back with all my might, but he held fast, tightening his hold. In the struggle, his sleeve rode up, revealing the gray watch on his wrist. I stopped struggling instantly. Last month, for Daniel's birthday, I'd bought him a classic silver wristwatch. When I went to give it to him, I noticed he was already wearing a sleek, gray one. It wasn't a brand I recognized, but the design screamed expensive. He'd casually mentioned it was a gift from a friend. That was the first time the disparity in our financial situations had truly hit me, sparking a pang of insecurity, of pressure. I hadn't said anything, but Daniel, perceptive as always, had noticed. He'd sighed softly, hugged me from behind, his warm lips brushing my ear. "What? Watch I wear doesn't matter," he'd murmured. "What matters is that you gave it to me." From that day on, he'd put the expensive gray watch away and wore only the silver one I'd given him. Until now. The very first day after our breakup, the gray watch was back on his wrist. A bitter laugh escaped me. "Let go," I said calmly. Daniel seemed to realize what I'd noticed. He abruptly released my hand, his voice sounding slightly strained. "The client I'm meeting today is crucial for the company." Before he could finish, Sophia chimed in, reminding him he was running late. Ignoring her, I looked directly at Daniel, my voice flat. "Was the watch a gift from her?" Silence. Then, finally, "Chloe, it's just a watch." I didn't want to hear any more. I pulled out my phone. Before I could even dial, my brother, Ryan, arrived. Ryan is 5 years younger than me. My mother never gave up her quest for a son, enduring years of dubious treatments, folk remedies, and acupuncture, losing a small fortune to charlatans. Finally, when I was 5, she conceived again. All her affection, all her hopes, were poured into Ryan. Towards me, she remained cold, distant. But despite that, Ryan and I had always been close. "Just the one suitcase?" Ryan scratched his head, looking puzzled. "Yes." "Huh." He looked even more confused. "I figured you girls always moved with tons of stuff. Knew I couldn't handle it alone, so I asked Ethan to come help." I blinked. "Ethan Chow?" "Yeah. Ethan just got back from a business trip to Shanghai, and I dragged him right over." Ryan's explanation was cut off by his ringing phone. A slightly deep voice came through the speaker. "Ready?" Yep. "No need to come up. We're heading down now," Ryan replied quickly, grabbing my suitcase. "Come on, sis. Let's go." I didn't hesitate. Picking up my bag, I followed him out the door. Behind me, I thought I heard Daniel call my name, but I didn't pause, didn't look back. Ethan Xiao's car was parked by the curb. As we approached, I saw him sitting inside, drumming his long fingers lightly on the steering wheel, seemingly lost in thought. Seeing his profile, the clean lines of his jaw, I felt a flicker of surprise. Ethan was a classmate from high school, the undisputed academic star of our year. But he was notoriously aloof, and I was painfully shy. Despite sitting next to each other for a year, we'd barely exchanged more than a handful of words. After graduation, I assumed our paths would never cross again. Until 2 months ago. Ryan started an internship at a prestigious investment firm. When I went to meet him there one day, I discovered Ethan was his direct supervisor. "Ethan," Ryan called out as we reached the car. Ethan turned his head, his gaze meeting mine. I offered a polite nod, then automatically reached for the back door handle. "Sit up front," Ethan said quietly before I could open it. Motion sickness is usually better in the front seat. I paused, surprised, but didn't question how he knew about my motion sickness. Silently, I closed the back door and got into the passenger seat. The drive was mostly silent. We arrived back at my parents' place around 2 p.m. Ethan dropped us off at the curb, didn't come up, just drove back towards the office. My mother emerged from the kitchen carrying 2 bowls of steaming food. She glanced at me coolly, her displeasure evident. But when she saw Ryan, her expression instantly softened into warmth. "The food's ready, come eat." The meal was eaten in strained silence. My mother's dislike for me was a palpable thing. I hadn't planned on staying long anyway, find a suitable apartment and move out as soon as possible. Later that evening, Mom sat on the sofa, knitting. Her eyesight wasn't what it used to be. A ball of gray yarn rolled off her lap onto the floor unnoticed. I walked over, picked it up silently, and placed it on the coffee table beside her. As I turned to go back to my room, her voice stopped me, sharp with irritation. "Why did you break up with Daniel?" I stood still, saying nothing. Daniel told me everything. So what if a female colleague gave him a watch? It's not like anything actually happened. What are you making such a fuss about? Disbelief washed over me. My throat felt tight dry. It was always like this. When I was little, bullied at school, intentionally tripped, I'd run home crying to Mom. She'd be busy feeding Ryan, her expression blank as I told her, before lecturing me. What good does telling me do? Why don't they bully other kids? Why only you? Maybe you should think about what you did wrong. Her coldness stunned me into silence. Ryan, taking advantage of my shock, yanked my hair playfully. I instinctively pushed him away. The next second, a stinging slap landed hard across my face. Mom comforted the now wailing Ryan, her eyes glaring daggers at me. I ran out, red-eyed, ran until my legs gave out, then collapsed, burying my face in my knees. It was Daniel who found me eventually. He sat beside me, gently patting my back, saying nothing, just quietly absorbing my hurt. Back then, I thought, Mom might never be on my side, but Daniel always will be. Enough. Show some sense. Mom's voice snapped me back to the present. He's coming to pick you up tomorrow. Give him a way out. Let him save face. Just let this whole thing go. She looked down, resuming her knitting. Even if you're not thinking of yourself, think about your brother. Daniel's mother. She has connections, resources. Ryan's future. I don't know how I got back to my room. It was dark. I didn't turn on the light. I sat motionless on the edge of the bed, staring out the window. Raised voices drifted from outside, Mom and Ryan arguing fiercely. Time blurred. Eventually, the door opened softly. Someone sat beside me, gently put an arm around me. Ryan leaned his forehead against my shoulder, his suppressed sobs sharp in the quiet darkness. Sis, I'm sorry. His voice was thick with tears. I don't know why she's like this. We're both her kids, aren't we? I turned to look at him. His face, so similar to mine, was streaked with tears, his eyes red. For years, I'd tried to resent him, channeling all my anger and hurt towards my mother, my unrequited need for her love, into hatred for him. It felt easier somehow. But as he grew older, he was always so kind, so protective of me. I couldn't even manage to hate him. I rented an apartment, he finally said, his voice firming. Just signed the lease, was planning to move in myself. You take it first. He looked me straight in the eye. Your future belongs to you. My future is my own responsibility. You don't ever have to do something you don't want to do for me, or for anyone else. Sis, tomorrow, I'll help you move. Before falling asleep, I received another message from Sophia. If it's the watch that caused the misunderstanding, I can explain. I ignored it. 10 minutes later, another message arrived. Last month, my mom brought back 2 watches from overseas. I kept the ladies' one for myself. It happened to be Daniel's birthday around then, so without thinking much, I just gave him the other one. Followed by, Daniel knows this too. I stared at the screen for a long moment, then typed back, are you saying you have a matching watch, the ladies' version of the same style he has? Sophia didn't reply. The next morning, after packing my single suitcase, Ryan and I got into the pre-booked rideshare car. Through the rear window, I saw Mom standing in the doorway. She just watched us leave. Her lips seemed to move slightly, but I couldn't hear if she said anything. During the drive, Daniel called multiple times, sent dozens of messages, demanding to know where I was. I sent a single reply, we've already broken up. After a long pause, he responded, Chloe, I didn't agree. I blocked him on everything. Ryan's apartment was a small 2-bedroom, modern minimalist style, clean and bright. Bonus, it was much closer to my office. We spent the afternoon unpacking and settling me in. Ryan collapsed onto the sofa afterwards, exhausted but grinning. Sis, you owe me a big dinner tonight. I laughed. Okay, deal. While making reservations on my phone, I hesitated, then asked Ryan to invite Ethan Xiao along too, as a thank you for helping me move yesterday. Traffic was heavy. It took Ryan and me over an hour to reach the restaurant. Ethan was already there, waiting patiently at the table. Head slightly bowed, one hand resting on his knee, the other stirring his coffee absently. The surrounding noise and bustle seemed to fade around him. For a moment, I flashed back to a high school study hall. Waking abruptly from a bad dream, heart pounding, my gaze drifted instinctively towards Ethan. He was engrossed in solving problems, posture perfect, fingers holding the pen precisely, moving methodically across the scratch paper. His fingernails were neatly trimmed. Sensing my gaze, he glanced over, then silently offered me a tissue before turning back to his work. It took me a moment to realize I was sweating. The tissue instantly soaked through Ryan's voice pulled me back. Oh man, he muttered beside me. Late for work is one thing, but late for dinner with the boss too? He's gonna kill me. I nudged Ryan forward, approaching the table. Sorry we're late, I said sincerely to Ethan. Order whatever you like tonight, don't worry about the cost. Ethan looked up, his gaze lingering on me for a moment before a small smile touched his lips. It's fine. I just got here myself. He then signaled the waiter and handed the menu directly to me. Why don't you order? Halfway through the meal, soft piano music began to fill the restaurant. I hadn't noticed before, but there was a grand white piano on a raised platform in the center of the room. A young woman sat playing, her back to the dining area. The wall behind her was adorned with numerous red, intricately tied lovers' knots. Ryan leaned in conspiratorially. It's their gimmick. Couples who come here can go up and play a song together, and they get a personalized lover's knot with their names written on it. Super popular date spot. Distracted by my food, I mumbled an "oh" and promptly choked on a piece of vegetable. Coughing quietly, head down, I felt a gentle hand patting my back. As the coughing subsided, a bowl of soup was pushed in front of me. Following the long, elegant fingers holding the bowl upwards, my eyes met Ethan's dark, steady gaze. I froze. Ethan seemed momentarily taken aback too, then quickly recovered, reaching over to grab Ryan's empty bowl and ladling soup for him as well. Ryan looked bewildered. I wasn't choking. Ethan. The atmosphere shifted subtly. Ryan glanced between Ethan and me, a knowing look dawning on his face, then excused himself to the restroom. The pianist on stage finished her piece. I looked over instinctively. As she turned around, I recognized her instantly. Sophia Zhou. Smiling, she accepted a red knot from a staff member, bent her head to write something on it, then walked back towards her table. Unsurprisingly sitting opposite her, holding the knot, was Daniel. From this distance, I couldn't decipher his expression. Sophia leaned close, whispering something in his ear. He suddenly laughed, his head thrown back slightly. Perhaps sensing my fixed stare, he looked up, his eyes locking with mine across the room. Surprise flickered across his face, quickly followed by a darkening frown. The next second, he was striding towards our table. His gaze lingered assessingly on Ethan for a beat, then swung back to me, his tone accusatory. What's your relationship with him? The injustice of his question sparked a surge of anger. My eyes dropped to the red lover's knot clutched tightly in his hand. Is the knot pretty? I asked coolly. Daniel's expression faltered. After a moment, he mumbled, It's not what you think. I just stared at him. Why, even now, did he maintain this air of self-righteous injury? The earnest, gentle boy from my memories, the one whose gaze held only me, seemed to be fading, blurring into an unrecognizable stranger. It's true, Sophia chimed in, joining him, her expression open, almost defiant. Daniel and I made a bet. If I could get the knot, he'd pay for dinner. He probably didn't expect me to actually know how to play the piano. I looked at her impassively. So, you're saying this is another misunderstanding? She smiled brightly. Of course. Daniel visibly relaxed, the last trace of unease vanishing from his eyes, replaced by that familiar, silent rebuke. See, Chloe? You're just being difficult. The absurdity of it all washed over me, leaving me feeling incredibly weary. After a long silence, I asked him softly, Do you still like me? Daniel froze, his eyes darting involuntarily towards Sophia for a split second before snapping back to me. His jaw clenched. Chloe, he said, his voice firm, deliberate, I love you. The words landed like a physical blow. I knew, with chilling certainty, that his feelings for Sophia, whatever they were, ran deeper than he admitted. And I believed he probably did still love me in his way. But his love when it was wholehearted had been so consuming, so absolute, that its diminishment was glaringly obvious. Even I, often oblivious, could see it clearly. Someone once said destruction is always the easiest path. Just like that, my feelings for him, nurtured over years, shattered in the space of his flickering glance towards another woman, in the hesitation before his declaration. Daniel seemed to sense the shift, reaching out to touch my cheek. I instinctively leaned away. His hand froze midair for a second, then dropped back to his side, a flicker of panic, of helplessness, crossing his face. Chloe, I admit I handled things badly before, I apologize. But the not really was just a misunderstanding. I never considered being with her. Can you forgive me? I looked at him calmly, peripherally aware of Sophia's suddenly pale face beside him. A soft chuckle sounded nearby, laced with unmistakable irony. Excuse me, sorry to interrupt. I just have a question for you too. Ethan Xiao slowly rose to his feet. His gaze towards Daniel and Sophia was cool, detached, like an amused spectator about to enjoy a show. Do either of you know the actual meaning of a lover's knot? Daniel glared at him, saying nothing. So you do know. Ethan smiled faintly, a hint of disdain in his voice. Claiming friendship while engaging in overtly romantic gestures, quite the convenient arrangement you have. Daniel's face turned ashen. Ethan drove me home that night. The late-night highway was quiet, the car gliding smoothly through the darkness. Ryan, exhausted, was curled up, asleep under a blanket in the back seat. Soft, instrumental music played quietly from the speakers. I stifled a yawn and heard Ethan's low voice. About half an hour more. Want to try and sleep? I shook my head. No, it's okay. Silence settled back into the car. Staring absently out the window, my gaze drifted back to Ethan. He drove with focused concentration, his profile sharp and cool in the dim light. I found myself thinking about his words to Daniel earlier. Can I ask you something? Ethan acknowledged without turning. Hypothetically, if you were in a relationship, but started developing feelings for someone else, what would you do? Ethan glanced over at me briefly, his voice calm, measured. I've always been monogamous by nature. That hypothetical doesn't really apply to me. I persisted, but if it did? He considered for a moment. A fleeting attraction might be normal, but people need clear boundaries. If you truly fall for someone else, if you can't stop yourself from crossing lines, yet you're unwilling to break up with your current partner, then regardless of gender, you're absolute trash. I listened silently, then, remembering something, teased, "Wow, didn't know you could be so harsh." Ethan replied evenly, only towards trash. Even after getting out of the car and saying goodnight, I felt slightly dazed. Ethan Xiao was different from the aloof figure I remembered from high school. More real and surprisingly approachable. The following month was a blur of work. Daniel tried to contact me numerous times, usually waiting outside my office building, his apologies soft-spoken, his demeanor earnest. I ignored him every time, yet he persisted, a constant, unwelcome presence at the end of each workday. One evening, I was working late. A colleague brought up some pastries and shared one with me, hesitating before saying, "It's raining really hard out there. Your ex-boyfriend is standing outside." We offered to let him wait in the lobby, but he refused. My heart gave an involuntary lurch. Grabbing my umbrella from the drawer, I hurried downstairs. Exiting the building, I saw the rain was indeed torrential. Daniel stood unsheltered in the downpour, his short hair plastered to his forehead, water streaming down his face, soaking his clothes completely. Silently, I walked over and opened my umbrella over his head. "Come with me." Ignoring the curious glances of a few passers-by, I led him into the building lobby and handed him a pack of tissues. Daniel sat down slowly on a bench, managing a weak smile. "Chloe, you do still care about me." Seeing the flicker of misplaced confidence in his eyes, a wave of irritation washed over me. "Wait here until the rain eases up, then leave." His smile vanished. His tone immediately softened, became pleading. The Sophia thing. I didn't handle it well, I know. But her and me. Hearing her name sparked a visceral wave of annoyance. I cut him off coldly. "I don't want to hear any more excuses. It's over between us." Perhaps my tone was too harsh. Daniel's expression hardened. "What more do you want? Are you really going to end things over something so minor?" I stared at him, shocked into silence, a chill spreading through me. Realizing what he'd said, Daniel quickly backtracked, apologizing profusely. "I'm sorry. I just don't understand. Nothing actually happened between us, so how did things get this bad?" He frowned, looking genuinely bewildered. "What more do you need me to do, Chloe? Nothing happened. Are you really breaking up with me over one stupid, irrelevant message?" He finished with a flash of impatience. Maybe he truly didn't get it. Maybe after groveling, apologizing, standing in the rain, he couldn't comprehend why I was still so unforgiving. But could he truly be that oblivious? His repeated allowances for Sophia's advances, his enjoyment of the thrill hidden beneath the calm surface of our relationship. Did he never consider I might find out? Or did he know he was crossing my boundaries but gamble on my forgiveness, on my weakness for him? Numbly, I reached up, touching my cheek. It was wet, though I hadn't realized I was crying. Daniel fumbled for the tissues, reaching out to wipe my tears. Daniel, I asked quietly, my voice flat, you said just now that nothing happened between you and her, right? He hesitated for a fraction of a second, then nodded. I took out my phone. I showed him the screenshot of Sophia's, visible only to him, post. I showed him the screenshot of her supposed explanation about the matching watches. And now, my voice was barely a whisper. You say nothing happened. Then why does everything you do mirror what couples do? The color drained from Daniel's face, leaving it pale, almost gray. Finally, in a voice so small it was barely audible, I asked the question that had haunted me. Daniel, you almost never ate noodles before. Why did you suddenly develop a love for bone broth noodles? The rain outside fell harder, a relentless drumming that seemed to swallow all other sound. Daniel stood silent for a long, long time. Then, without another word, he turned and walked away, disappearing slowly, silently, into the downpour. Another month passed. Daniel didn't try to contact me again. Ryan, in an effort to cheer me up, dragged me hiking several times. Each time, Ethan Xiao somehow ended up joining us. So, Ethan and I became friends, I suppose. A comfortable, easy friendship. Mid-Autumn Festival was approaching, which meant crunch time at work. I was pulling late nights almost every day. My father, who rarely contacted me unless it was important, sent an unexpected message. Chloe, coming home for the festival? Your mom bought a lot of crabs. I thought for a moment, then typed back, work is really busy, might have to work overtime. It took him a long while to reply, take care of yourself. The day before the holiday weekend, I received a call from an unknown number. It was Sophia. She asked if I had time for coffee. After a long pause, I agreed. She chose a cafe near my office. I went straight there after work. As soon as I sat down, Sophia stated bluntly, I'm giving up on Daniel. I stared at her, baffled. Was she crazy? After that night at the restaurant, she continued, pausing briefly, her voice attempting nonchalance, but failing to hide the bitterness. I confessed my feelings to Daniel. She shrugged. He rejected me. Explicitly this time. This time? I raised an eyebrow but said nothing, taking a slow sip of my coffee. I didn't give up, Sophia admitted. I kept trying, stayed close to him these past weeks. But he just got colder, more distant. His refusals became firmer each time. At a company dinner recently, some colleagues were teasing us, trying to push us together. His face instantly went cold. He warned them sharply not to joke around like that he had a girlfriend. Sophia gave a short, harsh laugh. But everyone there knew you two had already broken up. The coffee cup felt heavy in my hand. I couldn't understand Daniel's actions. But the thing that really made me give up. Sophia looked up, her eyes suddenly bright with unshed tears. After the dinner, he was pretty drunk, called for a ride. I was worried, so I followed the car. He went to your apartment building. She paused, swallowing hard. He just stood downstairs. For hours. Then, she continued, her voice barely a whisper, I saw you come downstairs with another man. You left together. I blinked, startled. A memory surfaced. Sophia must have been talking about last weekend, after the hike with Ryan and Ethan. On the way down the mountain, Ethan and I had been joking about weird high school nicknames. Ryan piped up, yeah, like last week I saw Ethan video calling his mom at the office, and she called him E and told him to find a girlfriend already. I'd looked at Ethan in surprise. E. He'd turned slightly pink but tried to maintain his composure, just grunting an affirmation and warning Ryan sternly not to use the nickname. I couldn't help laughing, teasing him all the way back. Then, distracted, I'd twisted my ankle badly. After they helped me home, I realized I was out of antiseptic and bandages, so Ryan, who knew the area, ran out to the nearby pharmacy. Ethan had helped me upstairs. That must have been what Sophia saw. And Daniel too, apparently. Not that it mattered anymore. No explanation was needed. I've never seen Daniel look like that, Sophia said, her voice low, almost odd, seemingly trying hard to suppress her own emotions. He's always so meticulous, so put together. But he just crumpled onto the curb, curled up, shoulders shaking. Her voice broke slightly. I heard him crying. Sophia let out a shaky breath, then looked directly at me, her expression raw. That's when I finally understood. He really regrets it. She wiped her eyes quickly, composing herself. But it's too late now, isn't it? You won't forgive him. I studied her face. The nervousness, the probing question beneath the surface, it was all clear. Her reason for meeting me today, for this strange confession, wasn't about her giving up. It was a final, desperate attempt. She wanted to gauge my reaction, to see if Daniel's visible remorse, his profound regret, might be enough to win me back. Wordlessly, I picked up my bag and stood. Looking down at her, I said calmly, "You don't need to waste your energy on this anymore. It's completely over between Daniel and me." Sophia blinked, a flush rising on her cheeks as she realized I'd seen through her ploy. But beneath the embarrassment, a flicker of relief crossed her face. I spent the Mid-Autumn Festival holiday alone in Ryan's apartment, trying to work on a major proposal for the next quarter. Ryan sent me a package. A hand-knitted scarf. Soft, warm, milk gray. Very cozy for the cooling weather. I didn't wear it, just tucked it away in a drawer. After several sleepless nights staring at the proposal draft, getting nowhere, a dull headache started throbbing behind my eyes. Soon, a wave of weakness washed over me, my limbs feeling heavy, energy completely depleted. With my last reserves of strength, I fumbled for my phone, intending to call Ryan. The call connected, but the voice that answered wasn't Ryan's. It was Ethan Chiao. "Chloe." I realized my mistake, my finger hovering over the end call button. But before I could say anything, the world tilted, darkness rushing in, swallowing me whole. When I came to, I was in a hospital bed. The faint scent of disinfectant hung in the air, and 4 lines snaked into my wrist. Soft voices murmured nearby. Ethan was sitting beside the bed, laptop open, typing intently. The soft light caught the fine hairs on his cheekbones, giving them a warm glow. My voice came out as a rough croak. "You're awake." Ethan immediately closed his laptop, reached for the thermal carafe on the bedside table, and poured me a glass of water. He stood watching as I drank, then explained calmly, "You didn't say anything on the phone earlier, just silence, then nothing. I figured something might be wrong. I messaged Ryan. He was too far away, so he told me where you keep the spare key and asked me to check on you first." My head still felt fuzzy from sleep. It took a moment to process his words. "The doctor said you collapsed from exhaustion, lack of sleep, and low blood sugar," he continued. I touched my nose, feeling inexplicably sheepish. Work has been really intense lately. Ethan studied me for a moment, then a small smile touched his lips. "Just like in high school. Always pushing yourself too hard." I blinked, feeling slightly awkward. "Where's Ryan?" Ethan held my gaze for a beat, then looked away, a ghost of a smile lingering. "Gone to get you something to eat. Want to rest a bit more?" I nodded automatically, then hesitated. "When I was unconscious, did anyone else come by?" Ethan was silent for a moment before answering quietly, "Your mother was here this morning." I lowered my gaze, fingers twisting the edge of the blanket. Vaguely, through the fog of unconsciousness, I recalled seeing her face, tear-streaked, anxiously. Asking the doctor, "Is my daughter all right?" It was the first time I'd ever seen my mother cry for me. It felt so unreal, I dismissed it as a dream. Suddenly, a gentle hand patted my head a few times. The touch was warm, dry, strangely comforting. I looked up sharply, meeting Ethan's eyes. The air between us shifted again, charged with unspoken things. Then, his expression changed, his gaze fixed on something behind me. He stilled. Following his line of sight, I slowly turned my head. Daniel stood in the doorway. He must have been there for some time. His eyes were red-rimmed. It had only been a month, but Daniel looked like a different person. His face was drawn, pale. His shirt was rumpled, a faint stubble shadowed his jaw, dark circles pooled under his eyes. He looked utterly exhausted. The Daniel I remembered, even during his impoverished childhood, was always meticulous about his appearance. Buttons done up perfectly, posture straight. Always presenting an image of calm control, almost effortless grace. Seeing him like this, disheveled, worn down, sparked a strange pang in my chest. Was it pity? Maybe. But mostly, it was the melancholic realization that the past was truly gone, irretrievable. He had undeniably been drawn to Sophia, whether it was fleeting infatuation or genuine connection. Somewhere along the way, the balance within him had shifted, tilted away from me. I believed he regretted it now. Truly regretted it. But what difference did it make? The damage was done. The trust was broken. The thorn was lodged deep in my heart. Every reminder, every encounter, just twisted it deeper, made it ache more. I had known him when his eyes held only me. How could I possibly settle for this fractured version, this man divided against himself? Lost in thought, I didn't realize Daniel had approached the bed until he spoke, holding out a thermal container, his voice hesitant, careful. Chloe, I heard you were sick. I made you some crab congee. Your favorite. My gaze flickered to his hand. A small bandage was taped across one finger, likely from preparing the crab. Daniel hadn't cooked in years. Not since his circumstances improved. He hated being reminded of the solitary meals of his youth. The fact that he'd cooked for me now. I realized we were out of soy sauce when I started, he continued, opening the container, offering a small, self-deprecating smile. By the time I got back from the store, the first batch had almost burned. He avoided my eyes. Took me a few tries to get it right. I looked at him silently. Inexplicably, my mind flashed back to him eating bone broth noodles with Sophia, granting her exceptions he'd never offered me. So, Daniel, I thought, is this your attempt at atonement? A sudden dryness burned my eyes. Daniel, we broke up. You don't need to do things like this anymore. His body went rigid, his expression stunned, lost. You should go, I said softly. Chloe, I promise, I've made things clear with Sophia. She won't bother us again, he pleaded, his voice trembling slightly, words tumbling out in a rush. It was all my fault before. I don't know what I was thinking, like I was possessed. I knew how she felt, but I let myself get close to her anyway. A faint, humorless smile touched my lips. Daniel's eyes reddened further. He reached for my hand. I instinctively pulled away. His hand froze, suspended in the air for a few agonizing seconds, before retracting. When did you start liking her? I asked quietly, my voice devoid of emotion. Daniel frowned deeply, looking like he wanted to deny it, argue, but couldn't find the words. Finally, he mumbled, we were working closely on that project. She's really dedicated, throws herself into her work. She reminded me of how you used to be. He stopped abruptly, looking up, his eyes filled with pain. I know I love you, Chloe. But I still did all those things that hurt you. I really am sorry. His voice trailed off. Just then, a slight breeze drifted through the open window. Ethan leaned forward naturally, tucking a few strands of hair that had blown across my forehead. Behind my ear, his scent, clean and faint, drifted closer. It wasn't unpleasant. My body tensed slightly at the proximity. Thanks, I murmured automatically. Ethan adjusted my blanket, pulling it higher, tucking it in carefully around my shoulders. You're welcome, he replied smoothly. As I tried to decipher the undertone in his simple words, Ethan looked up, meeting Daniel's gaze directly. His voice was cool, even. You were saying? Daniel fell silent. After a long, heavy moment, he slowly looked back at me, his eyes bloodshot. Nothing I do now will make any difference, will it? I met his gaze steadily. Some things. I just can't pretend they never happened. Daniel lowered his eyes, gently placed the thermal container on the bedside table, his voice low, thick with resignation. I'm sorry. He walked towards the door slowly, his shoulders slumped. It was only a few steps, but it seemed to take him an eternity. The bright hospital room light stretched his shadow long and lonely behind him. The room was quiet again, just Ethan and me. He picked up the container Daniel had left, opened it, glanced inside with a thoughtful expression. When you were with him before, did you do all the cooking? I nodded. Explains it. Ethan closed the lid again, his eyes conveying a silent sympathy for the ingredients. He looked back at me. I'm a decent cook, by the way. I blinked, surprised. The door opened suddenly, and a nurse came in to change my bag. Ethan smoothly turned his attention back to his laptop, resuming his typing. After the nurse left, I pulled the covers higher, intending to sleep again. But Ethan's voice broke the silence. Chloe. My eyes remained closed, but I murmured a soft acknowledgement. Listening to him just now, Ethan asked quietly, his voice low but clear in the still room, did you feel anything at all? I lay silent for a long time. No, I finally whispered. Ethan seemed to smile faintly. Good. I opened my eyes, pushed myself up slightly, and looked at him. He met my gaze directly, his expression open, unwavering. That look, again, the one he'd given me when he tucked my hair back, surfaced in my memory. The feeling that there was more beneath the surface. My intuition screamed it wasn't just my imagination this time. Impulsively, driven by something I couldn't name, I asked, "Are you?" "Yes," he answered before I could finish the question, his reply instantaneous, unambiguous. I stared, stunned. He held my gaze, his eyes softening, the carefully constructed walls around his own emotions seemingly dissolving. "So, Chloe," he asked softly, "what do you think?" I stayed in the hospital for 2 days. When I was discharged, Ethan came to pick me up. He held the passenger door open for me, one hand resting lightly on the frame, waiting until I was settled before walking around to the driver's side. I felt a flutter of nervousness, glancing sideways at him. Back in the hospital room, I had turned him down. Gently, but clearly. Ethan had helped me so much lately. I felt gratitude, appreciation, even a growing affection. But it wasn't the same as being ready for something more. Not yet. Before I could fully let go of the past, I couldn't commit to a new relationship. It wouldn't be fair to me, or to him. Ethan, seeming to anticipate my answer even then, had shown only a fleeting flicker of disappointment before nodding. "I understand," he'd said simply. Seeing the complexity in my expression, he'd offered a small, reassuring smile. "It's your right to refuse, Chloe. You don't owe me anything, certainly not an explanation or an apology for my feelings." He'd ruffled my hair gently then, his voice low and steady, calming. "Don't feel pressured." Now, sitting beside him in the car, the memory hung between us. As I reached for my seatbelt, his hand reached across at the same time. Our fingers brushed. Even through the cool fabric, his touch felt unexpectedly warm, almost electric. I flinched, pulling my hand back quickly. Ethan, however, acted completely natural, taking the seatbelt strap from me and leaning across to buckle it securely. My cheeks flushed. I averted my gaze, staring out the window. "Didn't Ryan say he was picking me up today?" I mumbled, trying to break the sudden tension. We hadn't seen each other since that conversation in the hospital. An urgent issue came up with a client in Shanghai. He had to fly out this morning, Ethan explained, starting the engine, his hands resting lightly on the wheel, his tone easy, conversational. "He told me to make sure you contact me directly if you need anything while he's gone." "Oh, okay," I murmured, pulling out my phone. Sure enough, several messages from Ryan, sent half an hour ago. A crying emoji, complaining about being shipped off on a last minute business trip by someone and not being able to pick me up. Followed by a meme sticker he'd made using a particularly unflattering, candid shot of Ethan, captioned, "Someone." Looking at the picture, Ethan, caught off guard but still undeniably handsome, I found myself smiling faintly. The night air, cool and soft, drifted through the partially opened car window, refreshing against my skin. I realized then, with a jolt, that every time I'd ridden in Ethan's car, the window was always cracked just enough, preventing motion sickness without letting in too much cold air. "Did Ryan tell you I get carsick?" I asked suddenly. "No," he replied quietly. Just then, the traffic light turned red. Ethan braked smoothly, stopping perfectly behind the line. He turned his head, looking at me, his expression unreadable. Feeling scrutinized, I looked away, uncomfortable under his focused gaze. He chuckled softly. "You probably don't remember." I looked back, puzzled. "High school," he began, his voice taking on a reminiscent quality. "One afternoon after school let out, we ended up on the same public bus. It was packed. You managed to get a window seat. Next to you was a woman with a small child." I frowned, searching my memory, drawing a blank. After a while, the child fell asleep against the window. "You must have been worried he'd get cold, because you quietly closed the window." He paused. "I noticed your face getting paler and paler, sweat beading on your forehead. Even your lips were trembling slightly. You looked absolutely miserable, but you didn't say a word. Just closed your eyes, leaned your head against the window, one hand clenched loosely on the sill, pretending to be asleep." Ethan glanced over at me again. I remember thinking then, my desk mate, she looks so quiet and gentle, but she's surprisingly stubborn. I blinked, a fuzzy memory slowly surfacing. That time, feeling incredibly nauseous on the bus, then someone sitting down next to me, offering a tissue. The window being opened, blessed cool air. I hadn't paid attention to who it was, just focused on not being sick. The relief when I finally got off the bus. Suddenly connecting the dots, I asked, "Was it you sitting next to me afterwards?" "Yes," Ethan confirmed simply. I stared at him, a strange, unplaceable feeling stirring within me. The light turned green. Ethan accelerated smoothly. "That," he said softly, his eyes on the road ahead, "was when I started noticing you." My heart skipped a beat. "Honestly," he continued, his tone reflective, "back then, I couldn't tell if it was attraction or just curiosity. But I found myself looking your way more often." He sighed lightly, a hint of self-deprecation in his voice. "I was too slow, too hesitant back then." "I was pretty clueless too," I admitted quietly. I truly hadn't noticed anything at the time. Although, thinking back, there was that period when the hallway lights near our classroom were broken. I always stayed latest for evening study sessions. And Ethan. He started staying late too, around that time, leaving almost immediately after I did. Was it possible? Was he walking me through the dark hallway without me even realizing it? In university, Ethan's voice interrupted my thoughts. "I went looking for you once." His tone became slightly strained. "It was raining. I saw you walking across campus, sharing an umbrella with a guy. He had his arm tight around your waist. Your head was tucked against his chest." Silence. It was only then, he finished quietly, feeling that sharp pang of emptiness, that I finally understood what my feelings for you really were. I looked up at him. He turned his head at the same moment, our eyes meeting briefly in the dim light before we both looked away again. When we reached my building, Ethan parked and walked me to the entrance. "Thank you for picking me up," I mumbled, looking down. As I turned to go inside, his hand gently closed around my wrist. It wasn't forceful like Daniel's had been. His touch was careful, deliberate, avoiding the bruised area where the four had been. Still, I startled. "Actually, I lied to you," he said softly. He stood very close now, his voice low, the cool night air carrying his breath to my ear. My mind raced, trying to figure out what lie he meant. "The trip Ryan took? What?" "About not caring," he clarified, his gaze direct, intense, holding mine captive. "About being fine with your rejection." He took a steadying breath. "That night after I left your hospital room, I couldn't sleep. I ended up running around my neighborhood park. 40 laps. He paused, the corner of his mouth ticking upward in a self-mocking smile. "Being rejected by you, it actually hurt. A lot." I stared at him, speechless, completely thrown off balance. "Chloe," he continued, his eyes earnest, unwavering, "if you're not ready for another relationship right now." His gaze softened. "That's okay. I can wait." He left then. I stood alone on the pavement for a long time, the cool night air doing little to calm the sudden turmoil inside me. As I finally turned to go upstairs, I saw a familiar figure standing in the shadows across the street, near the large oak tree. Even in the dim moonlight, I recognized him. Daniel. Just standing there, watching. "Chloe," he called out softly, his voice carrying a note of desperate appeal. Slowly, reluctantly, I walked towards him. Seeing me approach seemed to ignite a spark of hope in his eyes. He breathed my name again. But before he could say more, I spoke, my voice quiet but firm. "Daniel, please don't come looking for me anymore." I kept my gaze lowered, finding it easier to say the difficult words. "I'm going to start moving forward now. Maybe eventually, I'll start a new relationship." "Chloe." He repeated my name, helplessly, panic coloring his tone. Perhaps, until this very moment, he'd clung to the belief that this was just a temporary rift, a fight we could overcome. I couldn't let him hold on to false hope. Steeling myself, I looked up, meeting his anguished eyes. "But Daniel," I finished, the words heavy but necessary, "that person will never be you." We had known each other for over 20 years, been together for 5. We had seen each other at our lowest, shared our deepest vulnerabilities, offered comfort in the darkest times. I truly believed we would spend our lives together. But somewhere, somehow, everything changed. He fell for someone else. During those sleepless nights after the breakup, one question haunted me relentlessly. He pursued me so passionately back then. Why am I the only one fighting to hold on to this now? Looking back felt wrong. Moving forward felt wrong. Trapped. I knew some people fade from your life gradually, eroded by time and distance. I just never imagined it would happen like this, and like this. Maybe someday I could forgive him. But I knew with absolute certainty I could never go back. After that night, Daniel never appeared again. As for Sophia, she sent me one final WeChat message a few weeks later, saying she was leaving the city. No other explanation. While I didn't fully understand her motives for telling me, it ultimately didn't matter. My feelings towards her had dissolved into indifference. Why she gave up on Daniel, whether her life turned out well or poorly, it had nothing to do with me anymore. Time slipped by, almost unnoticed. A year passed. Looking back, it felt like a lifetime of changes crammed into 12 months. I visited my parents twice. Both times, I wore the milk gray scarf. On the second visit, my mother, watching me fidget with it, mumbled, "Awkwardly, it suits you. The color." Later, Ryan told me she'd spent weeks knitting it specifically for me, not for him as I'd initially assumed. A small gesture, perhaps, but monumental in its implication. My career took off. After the breakup, burying myself in work became my coping mechanism. The need to forget, to distract myself from the constant reminders of Daniel woven into the fabric of my daily life, propelled me forward. I volunteered for a challenging new project, pouring all my energy into it. The unexpected result? Besides the project's success, I earned 2 promotions within the year. The relentless pace, the constant demands, they served their purpose. One day, finding myself with a rare quiet moment, I realized with a start that I hadn't thought about the past, about Daniel, in a very long time. My relationship with Ethan, however, had slowly, subtly deepened. He became a quiet constant, driving me home after late nights at the office, weekend movie marathons, companionable gaming sessions. His presence was steady, understanding, never demanding. He gave me space, yet was always there. I felt increasingly comfortable, myself around him. I realized, with a sense of quiet surprise, that I was slowly, cautiously, letting him in. The day we officially became a couple coincided with a company team-building event. Celebrating my recent promotion and department transfer, my colleagues insisted on celebratory drinks. Many drinks. Ethan picked up a thoroughly intoxicated me afterwards. Back at my apartment, as he gently deposited me onto my bed, the dam finally broke. Overwhelmed by emotion, relief, exhaustion, maybe just the alcohol, I started crying uncontrollably. Ethan simply held me, his voice inexplicably rough when he asked, "Why are you crying?" Looking up into his concerned eyes, that familiar, indefinable feeling surged again. I burrowed against his chest, clinging to his warmth, and poured everything out. My mother, Daniel, Ryan, the people I'd loved, hated, resented. The tangled knots of hurt and confusion I'd carried for so long. I laid it all bare, stripping away layers of carefully constructed defenses. I was rarely so emotionally expressive, so vulnerable. But with Ethan, there was a profound sense of safety, of acceptance. When I finally fell silent, exhausted, he sighed softly, resting his chin lightly on the top of my head. His voice was gentle, yet firm. "Some hurts can't be forgiven, Chloe. But even carrying resentment, we still have the right to love and to be loved." That night, Ethan didn't leave. Time flows differently when you're content. Another year passed quickly. Today is my birthday. Ethan is in the kitchen, humming softly as he cooks. Ryan is playing sous chef, chopping vegetables with enthusiastic incompetence. Watching them together, a warm, settled feeling spread through me. My mother, with her blatant favoritism, had inadvertently gifted me Ryan, a constant source of light and support. Then, circumstance, through Ryan's internship, brought Ethan back into my life. Ethan, like the moon after a storm, offered quiet strength, gentle companionship, a comfortable, grounding presence. Now, these two men, so different, yet both so vital, formed the bedrock of my life. Stable, secure. They were still busy in the kitchen when I noticed an anonymous package left on the coffee table. Curious, I opened it. Inside, nestled on black velvet, was a ring. Simple, elegant. As I turned it over, I saw 2 letters engraved on the inner band, D and O. A small slip of paper lay beneath it, "Happy birthday. May you have peace and happiness always." For a moment, I felt a flicker of disorientation, a ghost of the past. I recognized the ring. I'd found it almost 2 years ago, tucked away in the back of Daniel's nightstand drawer while searching for a hairdryer. I had waited, hinting subtly, hoping he would finally ask. But he never did. I couldn't understand it then. Why buy the ring if he wasn't going to propose? Until that night at the movies. The scene on screen, a dramatic, heartfelt proposal. Summoning my courage, I'd whispered, eyes closed, "Daniel, you bought a ring too, didn't you?" Silence. A cold dread spread through me. I opened my eyes. He wasn't watching the movie. He was looking down at his phone, smiling that soft, private smile, watching a video of Sophia Zhou. In that instant, I understood his hesitation. His heart was already elsewhere. Now, holding the ring Daniel bought but never gave, the past felt distant, detached. A closed chapter. I carefully placed the ring back in its box and tucked it away in a drawer, out of sight. The future, warm and bright, was waiting in the kitchen, smelling faintly of garlic and something delicious simmering on the stove. End.